Sunday morning to join me in talking about something that I love, but also at the same time find a little embarrassing. So how many of you here sort of have an idea what I'm going to be talking about? If you can raise your hand. Okay, so I'm really going to be preaching mostly to the choir. I actually have two versions of the presentation. One which I call the 18 plus version, and the other one which I call the 13 version. So right now the default version is the 18 plus version. Is that okay with you guys? All right. All right. So let's get this started. So I'm Andrew Yoon. I'm a former writer at Joystick and former editor-in-chief at Shack News, and right now I'm just a dude. So that's my Twitter profile, just a dude that happens to love boys' love. So let's get started. This presentation features porn. Okay, it will have porn. So I'm really trying to make it clear that if you don't want to see animated, I'm being very specific here, but animated boys touching each other, you really should leave right now. In my alternate version of the presentation, it just says, let's see, notice. All right, so I thought this would be a really great way of starting the presentation. It'll just sort of give you an idea what to expect. Unfortunately, the sound is coming from my laptop. So. I'll explain all of this soon. I don't know, what was that white spray? Not sure. Not sure. All right, so what you just saw was the opening movie of Miracle Noten, which is a boys' love game. It's actually Miracle Noten 2, so that's the sequel. You might have lost some important plot elements by watching this. I apologize if there were spoilers. Miracle Noten. This is essentially the summary that I found written on a game review site. Ogata Akira finds a magical living notebook that can grant any wish he writes in it. But there's a catch. Only horny wishes work. So begins Akira's days of homoerotic wish writing. The way I joke about it is, are you guys familiar with Death Note?
Yeah.
It's gay Death Note, which by the way is a thing. Miracle Noten. It's actually a PC otome game, and it features guys doing all sorts of raunchy things, but it's also an audio CD, it's posters, it's pillows, it's all sorts of merchandise. There's actually a really thriving community around this brand and this genre of game. So I think we have to start by defining, well, what is boys' love? It's commonly referred to as yaoi in both Japan and here in the US. And so I remember looking at this Penny Arcade strip many years ago about Yaoi, and so essentially Gabe and Taiko are talking, and they're like, "Yeah, you should check out this Yaoi. You're really gonna like it." And obviously, back in the day, people didn't know what that was. He checked it out, and there you go. Actually, I think that's the strip that introduced me to Yaoi. Actually, I was like, "What? Why is he so angry?" And then I typed it in to Google, and then that's sort of how it began. Thank you, Google image search. So, boys love Yaoi. It's a Japanese genre of fictional media focusing on homoerotic romance or sexual relationships between male characters, and the twist is that it's usually aimed at a female audience, and it's usually created by female authors. So YaoiCon, which is actually coming to San Francisco this September, I'm really excited for that. It's actually 85% female by last count, and in the US about 25% of readers are male. So it's a largely female audience. And so there's a reason for that. I'm going to go into a brief history. I know it's Sunday morning, so bear with me. There will be porn, so don't worry. So female authors writing for shoujo, so targeted towards girls, these shoujo magazines, they used to have platonic relationships between young boys. In the late 70s, they started having like sexualized parodies of popular anime and manga, so essentially slash fiction. So I'm sure you might know people that are slashing like Harry Potter characters. It's essentially the same idea. And then by the end of the 70s, there were actually entire magazines devoted to boys love. And so in the 90s, the term boys love, BL for short, was invented. And yeah, here's an image of Gabe and Taiko. So, two things that might be important to you in this Yaoi panel. So there's usually a top or a bottom in these games, and so the top is referred to the seme, and the bottom is referred to as the uke. So here, if we want to go back, so who's the seme and uke here? You should think about that. So one question, so why do girls like Yaoi, right? It's guys having sex, and really I really thought that there would be a lot more guys that would be into Yaoi because it's beautiful. So actually I went to Yahoo Answers, which is the premier source of answers on the internet. and these two were actually right next to each other, so I thought it was just great to see them right next to each other. So the first answer is, to many teenage girls, the conventional pairing of a girl and a boy, it seems unrealistic, that it would never happen that way in real life. Yaoi and Shonen Ai, boys love, offer a different view, almost a whole different world. When teenage girls read it, they don't feel like they need to compare it with their own circumstances. They can just enjoy the story in its purest form. It's love, regardless of gender and boundaries. It's really beautiful, right? And then the next one, because we like seeing hot guys, LOL. And I think those are two very valid responses for why you might get into Yaoi. I'm definitely more of the latter. So actually, Yaoi is a pretty big subgenre in anime. There's even commercially available boys love products available in the US. So this is actually a trailer for Junjo Romantica, which is a pretty popular boys love anime series. That was also for the sequel, so I'm just ruining all these series for you. I'm so sorry. I really should have thought that through. So Junjo Romantica, Misaki is struggling to prepare for his college entrance exam, so his brother arranges for a private tutor. But Misaki's nightmare is just beginning when his tutor, Usami, comes onto him. I'm pretty sure I've seen this porn before. How will Misaki ever manage to pass his exam? Why does he feel so mysteriously drawn to Usami? Probably because he's gorgeous. So this panel isn't only about Yaoi. This being GamerX, it has to be about games. So I sort of set up, okay, so Yaoi is a thing, boys love is a thing. So what happens when you make it interactive, right? So in Japan, there's a big genre of games called otome, which is usually a story-based video game that's, once again, targeted towards females. And generally, the goal of the game is to develop a romantic relationship with one of the many attractive males that you can choose from. So otome games aren't necessarily about gay relationships. In fact, most of them you play a female and you're trying to get a male suitor. And actually, some of them are commercially available in the US as well. So this is a trailer for Hakuoki, Memories of the Shinsengumi, which is a really long title. So yeah, this specific game is available on Nintendo 3DS, but the franchise actually spans a lot of different games. I think there's PSP games, there's PS3 games. It definitely, it's been a pretty surprising success for Axis, given that it seems like it would have a limited appeal, especially compared to some of the bigger budget games out there. The series is about Chizuru, a young woman who finds herself fighting alongside the infamous Shinsengumi as competing factions war for control of Japan. It's pretty serious stuff. The M rating doesn't come from anything too naughty though, so it's really mostly the violence of the war that's happening. So don't get too excited. You won't be able to. I was gonna say rush out to Blockbuster and rent it, but that's not a thing that people do anymore. And I guess I just dated myself. So there we go. So how do these games play? If you're unfamiliar with otome games, they're essentially choose your own adventure games. They usually don't have that much animation. You'll just see art and characters sort of talking to one another, and you'll make dialogue choices. Maybe imagine The Walking Dead, but with less zombies and more sex. So I thought it would be fun if, as a group, we could sort of simulate play of one of these games. Would that be okay with you guys? Yeah. All right. Okay. So this is a really abbreviated version. Most of these games don't even run on a Mac, so I'm sorry about that. So we're gonna go through just a scenario, and let's just see what happens. So. For the sake of this panel, we're gonna give you the choice between seducing either Ogata Koki, who's your brother, or Shimomura Seiji, who's your friend. Remember, Miracle Noten, the premise of this game is that you stumble upon a magic notebook that lets you make horny wishes come true. So remember that. So your brother's perfectly fine. Right? All right, so by a show of hands, should we go after Ogata, your brother? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. How about Shimomura Seiji? Okay. All right, people are decided. All right. Okay. Why are people laughing? This is so serious. Okay, so Shimomura Seiji, Akira's cheerful childhood friend, and has been in love with Akira ever since they first met. Akira goes to Seiji's place and finds himself getting beat up by his stepfather. That's not good. So what will you guys do? All right, so there's two options here. Should he charge in, punch the man, or should he just stand by and do nothing? If you think he should charge in, raise your hand. All right. I don't think. Okay, fine. I don't think we have to ask about the. All right. I put the black bar there for decency. I'm sorry, but you know, it's still weird to me to show you guys like pixelated animated penises, but maybe next time or the next con. So Akira saves Seiji and runs away with him. Seiji says they have to go back, but Akira refuses to let him go. Then Akira drops some aphrodisiac that he just happens to have. And so the two have sex in the woods, and Seiji confesses his love. All right. The plot is very deep in these games. The writing is incredible. So what should he do? Should he confess his love, or just say that they want to be friends? Friends. We're gonna take a vote here. All right. I think there's a certain. All right. So should he confess his love? Raise your hands if you think. Okay. All right. That's a pretty good size. Or should they just stay friends? Oh wow. All right. Okay.
No.
All right. They're just gonna stay friends. How could you do that to him?
Why are his clothes all torn up?
Because Seiji continues to get beaten up by his stepfather. Akira and Seiji no longer remain friends. The end. That's your fault, alright?
Big brother.
So actually, I did put that back arrow there does let us replay the game if you want to try another scenario, or we can just continue on with the talk. I'll leave it up to you guys.
Brother.
This is just wrong.
Oh, you went right back to
Yes.
You knew.
Well, I really thought that if this panel weren't long enough, we'd just keep on going back. And I put a lot of effort into making this branching storyline. Also, that is actually how it plays in the game. Like, this is abbreviated, but that is actually the story. Okay, so Ogata Koki, your brother, is Albert Einstein, Michael Phelps, and Mother Teresa. A perfect human specimen, a genius, an athlete, and a saint. And you've caught him masturbating.
Like Sam.
What is he doing with his hands? So what will you do after stumbling upon your brother masturbating? Are you going to relieve yourself in secret, or use the magic notebook to seduce your brother? Alright, so by show of hands, are you going to relieve yourself using your hands in secret? Raise your hand. Wow, no one cares. Alright, okay, so I guess we're just going to use the magic notebook. Alright, so you and your brother get it on. Koki comes back after getting drunk one night, and he confesses that he likes Akira in an incestuous manner. And the two have sex. Koki, I forgot to tell you this, he actually had a fiancée. Good job, you guys. He leaves her, and Akira and his brother live together. Also, they're still brothers. So, good job, you guys. Alright. So actually, most of the gameplay of these otome boys love games typically goes like that, where you have to just choose dialogue options. And most of the time, like in Choose Your Own Adventures, just the weirdest results happen. Like if you make a left turn, you'll die, right? And I'll show you some of the alternate endings that after we're done with this panel, but they're not always pleasant. And so I was trying to find any game that at least differed from that, you know, just wasn't a Choose Your Own Adventure game. And thankfully I actually found a Miracle Noten spin-off game, which has you typing in Japanese. So actually, so you're still choosing dialogue options, but now you have to actually physically type the response in, so you feel a little bit more responsible. It's like combining typing of the dead with porn. see some of the gameplay. That is the Notebook, by the way.
It's BMO on crack.
Yes.
Yeah, horny BMO.
Actually, so this is actually what helped me learn how to type in Japanese. I'm not kidding. This is. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Clearly not. I just told you guys. So yeah, so this is essentially the game, and after doing well enough, you get rewarded with porn. Also, the Notebook. In Miracle Noten 2, actually, the Notebook becomes a romance interest where you can actually wish him to turn into a human and have sex with him. So and he's hot. So. And so there's actually a lot of otome games out there, and some of them actually have sort of gone into this transmedia zone where they've actually crossed into the mainstream, or I guess the mainstream of Japan. So this is a trailer for a series called Dramatical Murder. I don't know what that means, but, but let's take a look. I think this just started in Japan, and you can actually stream it on Crunchyroll right now.
Oh my god! It's BMO on crack. Those are not rabbits. Those are something else.
So I mean, that looks pretty cool, right? I don't know what was going on, but it looks pretty cool. And actually, just by watching that, I don't think you would have any sense that it was a boys' love product at all. And so, yeah, it's Dramatical Murder set in the near future on the fictional Japanese island of Midorijima. Aoba Seragaki works at a store named Junk Shop, hoping to live a simple life. But when he plays the popular cyber game Rhyme, his peaceful life ends. And so, just based on that synopsis, you really wouldn't have any idea like where its origins are. But it was a boys' love game actually. So yeah, this is these twins are hot. And so actually, in Japan, they're actually starting to adapt a lot of these boys' love products into mainstream into mainstream series. Another example of that would be Gakuen Heaven, which is a boys' love game. Let's see if my internet's good enough to play this. It might not. But yeah, Gakuen Heaven, it's about Keita Ito, who receives a letter of admission to a prestigious all-boys school. And although he doubts his abilities, he's picked by Niwa, the president of the student council. And from then on, he is warmly welcomed by everyone to BL Academy. Yeah, you figure out what was gonna happen. But yeah, that also turned into a mainstream anime series, which you can pick up on DVD. And so yeah, in Japan, there's actually a rather thriving market of boys' love games that even come out on console. So we have the Gakuen Heaven game on Ripe for PSP, and most of them end up on PlayStation products. So you know, if you're into this stuff, you know, that's probably the console of choice that you should pick. And actually, a few of these games have made their way stateside as well. So I think the first one that ever came out here is Enzai, Falsely Accused, which is set in a post-revolutionary France in the 19th century. Guy's a young boy from a poor family, gets caught stealing candy, and he gets accused and convicted of murdering a man that he never met. And so he has to survive in prison and try to somehow prove his innocence. And of course, this happens along the way. It's prison. Oh, no, spoilers. Go back. So another game that's available, Absolute Obedience, set in a post-World War II West Germany. The player takes the role of either Kia or Louise, one of two members of a secret agency assigned to seducing specific targets, from members of the KGB to aspiring soccer players. Not sure, they'll do it. And so yeah, you spend a lot of time doing this. So what's the future of the boys' love market? So in Japan, it actually makes about, just in game sales alone, it makes about $20 million a year. But in the US, actually, so these two games did come out, but there haven't been any releases ever since, in spite of the fact that the market is growing in Japan. And for the most part, it's been attributed to piracy. So you know, I'm not going to give you the resources, but you guys are smart. You can probably figure out a way to download a lot of these games illegally. You know, but short of just flying out to Japan, you're pretty much not going to be able to buy them anymore. And as much as I love these boys' love games, I did want to talk about a few of the problems. I'm sure a lot of you said that you're familiar with Yaoi, so I think we all know that like Yaoi's a fantasy. It is essentially porn in many ways. Some of the problems that these games and the genre has, diminish female characters. So usually these worlds don't have women for some reason. It's just men that are just chasing other men, and narratively they usually don't have any explanation as to why there are no women around. Or in a lot of instances in early Yaoi, female characters would just get killed off like instantly, like in like the first few pages, and then just okay, no more women. Now you can be gay. Also, gay equality. So homosexual characters in Yaoi are really empowered. You know, they're free to make their own decisions, and there's very rarely any stigma associated with being gay in these stories. Sometimes it might be like playful. Hisako Miyoshi, who works for Libre Publishing, said that earlier Yaoi focused more on the homosexual way of life from a realistic portrayal, but now it's becoming just quote-unquote simply for entertainment. And I think a problem with this is that it also just doesn't reflect how gays are actually treated in Japan. There's a really big uphill battle that they face there. I know from here, based on this panel, it might seem like they might be even more progressive than in the States, but actually the opposite is true. And I think a real big problem with the genre is there's a lot of rape, just physical rape, but also just a lot of the relationships in these series do have non-consensual relationships that evolve into something that's considered consensual. A lot of the stories involve just like trying to convince the guy that he really wants it, and that's hot for some people, especially in a pornographic setting. But just need to be aware of that. So a lot of the games that I presented today are just what I would put under the banner of Yaoi and Shonen Ai. But there are subgenres within them that don't have as many commercial products out there. So Bara is a subsection which I had to add last night. Thank you. And Bara is actually typically created by and for gay men. Bara typically features more complex relationships where the idea of seme and uke isn't necessarily a focus, and it's more likely to show characters who are hairy and very muscular or have a few excess pounds. So this would be an example of Bara. There's less pretty, but that's sort of the point. there are also bara games out there, but not commercially. So I really struggled to find any commercially available bara games. But you can find Flash games and like just like fan created PC games, like whatever the hell this. I don't know what's going on here. It looks like an RPG, and I don't know if you're fighting that furry monster or if you're seducing him or if you're doing both. But that's a thing. Another thing I wanted to quickly address is Yuri, Girls Love. It also is a thing that exists, has its roots with lesbian literature. Unfortunately, once again, I wasn't able to really find any commercially available Yuri games, games that involve girls on girls in a romantic manner, not strictly like for male like pornographic consumption. But yeah, that's an idea of what to expect. And so yeah, that's the end of my panel. So if you guys have any questions, now is the time. Or we can just play that game again. Or if you don't have questions, you can share your Yaoi stories.